Family Dynamic Conversations, where families and stories come in all shapes and sizes. I come from a family of 12. You may be an only child. What matters is caring, sharing, and finding ways to relate to one another. Welcome back to Family Dynamic Conversations. I'm your host, Janice Kingsbury. Thank you for joining me today. Let me tell you, I am number 11 out of 12 kids. There were 4 boys, 8 girls, large family. So lots of stories, lots of experiences to talk about and share, because navigating your life through a large family can be fun. So let's just stick with that, because today's episode is about fun childhood memories. Today, my special guest is Ann Vogt, who is my sister Donna's child. Thank you for joining me today, Ann. How are you?
Hello. I'm excited to be here.
It's going to be fun. I'm going to ask every guest how many in their family, what number are you, and then a little context, where are you from?
Love it.
Okay.
Well, as mentioned, I am Donna's daughter. Donna is number 9 in the 12, and I am child 2. So Donna and my dad, Rick, had 4 children together, and they are all boys other than me. Now, most people, when they hear that, they think like, oh, you must have been the princess. And maybe I'm the princess now, but back as I was growing up, I was just like one of the boys. We were constantly doing things together as a group. So I got really used to being around boys and interacting with boys and all that good stuff. And so growing up as child 2, however, most people ask me like, oh, you must be the troublemaker.
Oh,
and I always tell them I didn't get to be the troublemaker because child 1 did not take on the child 1 persona.
Oh.
And so I had to step right in as child 2 and take over that type A, scheduled, rule follower personality, which was fine. It has, it has its pros and its cons, but I did not get to be the troublemaker. Scott, my younger brother, who is child 3, he got that role, and he played it so well, in the best way. Best way. That'll be another episode for you.
For sure.
Talking to Scotty about how he pulled off all that he pulled off as child 3. We'll leave it there. And we grew up in southern Minnesota. So I grew up where Janice grew up, in Mankato, Minnesota. And I haven't really strayed too far from there. I've lived in Morgan, Minnesota, which is about an hour away. And now I currently am in New Ulm, Minnesota, which is 30 minutes away. And this is where I remind everybody that in the Midwest, we talk in minutes instead of miles. And that's just what we do. And you just need to be okay with that. And I'm so sorry for those of you who are like, wait, it takes me 30 minutes to get to work and it's 2 miles away. I know. Not out here in farm country. It's not the same.
No. So let's ask our guests too. If you guys are from a large family or a small family, just let us know down in the comments there. How many were in your family and what number are you? So we can kind of see where everybody's at.
I love that. And where you fit. Does your role match your number, or did you have to be a ninja like myself and take on multiple roles?
Which reminded me of my 2 kids. I had a son first, Spencer, and then a daughter, Samantha. And I think Samantha went into that same kind of role of organizer, list maker, get it done, invite people, and then, yay, everybody's happy. And Spencer's like, thanks, kid. You're awesome. Keep that up. I love it.
And I have the inverse. I have a daughter who's oldest and a son who's child 2. And they take on those personas like to a T. So Ella is our list maker, our type A, our rule follower, our reminder of all rules. And I used to say that Ella's the one who reminds us of the rules, and Landon's the one who asks about the rules so that they can be broken. He's like, let me clarify what you need me to do so I can choose what I'm going to do.
Not to do.
It's great.
There you go.
It's fun having opposites as children.
Too funny. We're going to move on to, it's kind of a vague concept to say, tell me your fondest childhood memory. When you have multiple seasons where you live, let's start with the winter. So maybe that kind of narrows it down a little bit. Do you have any fond memories in the winter, Anne?
I sure don't, Janice. I sure don't. Thank you for asking. So for those of you who are like, why does this woman live in Minnesota if she doesn't like the winter? I say to you, good question. Let's dive into that in a psychological interview later. Yeah, I grew up in Minnesota with the white snow and the long winter season. And I just didn't have any activities that I enjoy in the snow. And so winter just really, it just doesn't speak to me. It feels like sitting inside. And now as an adult, I sit inside and read books and watch the beautiful snow. Not that it's not pretty. It is beautiful. It's just not fun on your skin and your face and under your tires. And so I don't have many fond memories of being in winter. And I think that's also attributed to me having all brothers and me having a lot of guy friends in middle school. So for some reason, I just gravitated toward boys and men. I think because I really did feel like I understood them, constantly being surrounded by them as a, growing up, that I had a lot of guy friends, and they loved throwing little 85-pound Annie into the snow. So we would go sledding. I would try to love it, and then it would be like, oh, let's whitewash you into the snow. For those of you who don't know, it's literally pushing somebody's face into the snow. It's great.
That's terrible.
So it's terrible. And, they thought it was so fun. And boy, were they wrong from my point of view. But those are the memories of winter. I didn't ice skate. I didn't snowmobile. We didn't snowmobile as a family.
Yeah.
There just really wasn't a lot of fun about being outdoors in the winter. Now,
so my fond memories were snowmobiling. Ice skating was like, okay, here's your sister's old pair of skates that are 3 sizes too big. Ow, ow, ow. And then, but the idea of sledding, like Sibley Hill there in, is that considered still Mankato?
Sibley Park? Mankato, yep.
Okay. Yep. So we would go there, and it was huge hill, and it was fun going down, but man, to get your butt back up that hill, you were sweating because it was took everything to get up the hill. And then you got there waiting your turn, the wind is blowing, you're freezing, my hands were numb, but then you would go down the hill and you were so excited, and am I going to fall off this time and break my neck? Maybe, but what the hell?
Am I going to run into another sled that's out of control? Possibly.
more than likely.
Maybe this is also why I didn't enjoy sledding. I'm such a control freak and needing to know what I'm doing and where I'm going.
Out of my
way. You had no control on that hill. And bigger kids would create, bumps and jumps on there. And if you accidentally hit one of those, man, yeah. Maybe it was my anxiety that kept me from enjoying sledding. It's not the activity itself.
No. I had a friend who had snowmobiles, and she was out on farmland. My friend Luann Whitrock.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The older brothers would take us out. They had 2 or 3, if not 4 snowmobiles. So it was just like, you could have your own. So the brothers would take me first to kind of figure out how to do it. And then they would actually let me go by myself. Now, I can't remember the age. I had to be maybe 10 through 15, somewhere in there. I think it was younger. But oh my God, that was fun.
It was, Janice. Let's just be real. 7-year-old was probably teaching you, and you were probably 7.5.
No. Pretty sure not. But that was a blast. But again, it's so freaking cold there that it was like you had 10, 15, maybe half an hour to enjoy something. It's like, please let me go home. I can't feel my fingers and my toes.
Yeah. Your face is like beet red and icy, and and it takes you a good 4 hours indoors to finally thaw out completely. Yeah.
Okay, we're done with winter then. Good.
Let's move on. Let's not go into that. We're recording this in June, and I don't even want to be thinking about what's to come.
But it is the reason why I moved the hell out of Minnesota.
Oh, good for you. I know.
21, I was gone. Yeah.
This is a family dynamics podcast, and I will say that both my husband and I, for years, right when we met and right early on in our marriage, we had just talked about as soon as our parents are no longer here, we will leave here. And how interesting of a concept of that. So I don't know how many of your listeners are thinking to themselves, I haven't ventured away because I feel, I don't know, yes, you want to stay close, but also maybe a little bit of like guilt of not being close. And so I think that's really interesting that both of us have had this conversation over and over. Like, yep, as soon as we're leaving, as soon as. And then you think about it and you're like, we're talking 40 years from now. Well, 30, who knows? But, potentially we're talking a long time. Like, it's just wild.
That's right.
And so, yeah, that would be a great question too for your listeners to drop below. Like, how far away do you live from family? And, do you have that Midwestern guilt that kind of keeps you in the snow 6 months of the year?
I feel like, Ann, now I should be feeling guilty for
No, I'm so proud of you. Let me just tell you.
That means a lot. No, that's good. Yeah, I'd like to know too. Where are you at in your global life? And then are you still close to family, or they're like, get the heck out of there? But it was mainly the winter. It was just the idea of, I'm done shoveling 6 people's sidewalks that I have to walk on. And then we lived in Pennsylvania too, and we had 2 driveways, and that shoveling, when you had maybe even 6 inches, then it got to be 12, then 18. Oh my God. Done.
Yeah.
Samantha too. So she was done with college in Pittsburgh. Bye-bye, Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Hello, Southern California. Yeah.
I know. And I don't think in the Midwest, I think we are a little ignorant to like, what would it be like to live in an area that plans are not changed by weather?
Oh, right.
We went down to Arizona as a family a couple years ago, and, I kept checking the weather. My friend Jill, I said, well, before we get tickets for that game, we should probably check the weather. And she was like, oh my.
So sorry, Ann.
Oh, Ann, nothing
Silly
goose will postpone us from attending this game. And it was kind of fun. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, we're not getting rain. We're not getting rain, Ann. Nothing's, you poor soul. But that is just something so inherent in the Midwest is focus on
First
the weather.
Thing you do.
Make your plans around the weather, and things like that. And so it's just comical. Yeah,
that's right.
I don't even think we know how we have adapted and how it's like changed our whole view and who we are in a little bit.
I was going to say much more pleasant summer, but Minnesota summers aren't hot, sticky, bitey with those mosquitoes. But there are some fun memories there.
There are. As an adult, I've really come to love Minnesota summers. I think as a kid, you just assume this is how all summers are. And you get used to it. And through travel and going to other states in the summer and seeing other things, I do really love Minnesota summers. You cannot beat a night on the lake when it turns just like glass and you're out there fishing. This actually just happened on Father's Day. I got to go fishing with my mom and dad by myself on Father's Day. And, it was pretty wavy and choppy when we got out there. And then it hit sunset and it was just like perfection on the lake. And there's this, I don't know, like emotional tug hit that moment of like, I could freeze this in time because of the weather and the beauty and, the green and the lake and all things. And so I do think Minnesota summers are incredible. And most of my childhood memories, when I think of summer, I really do think of being at the lake or being on vacation, which was almost always on a lake. Which is great. To this day, that's, I think, why I love it so much. Is because we did have experiences when we were kids traveling from different lakes and staying on, for our one vacation a year, we quickly found ourselves fishing somewhere in Minnesota or Wisconsin.
So how big a fish did you get one time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually have a very keen memory. Kevin's going to kill me for this story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. We went up to northern Minnesota. So as the girl, I got to learn all of the activities, but it didn't always mean I loved all of them. Right. So I got to learn how to fish. Fishing with my dad and just fishing with my dad as a kid was always really fun because it wasn't about fishing. It was about getting attention one-on-one.
Yeah.
But then when we would go on family vacations, I would sit at the bottom of the boat in the shade, or I would tan. I wasn't fishing very often. And my older brother was big into fishing, and he wanted to catch those, really big fish. And we went up north one year. I think he might have been 13. So he would have been 15, and he was fishing all morning. I mean, they went out at 6 a.m. and, Mom and I and the two younger brothers hung out in the cabin. And then, we went out later all together. Fun. And I caught 2 monster pike on this one boat ride. And I just remember being like, oh, cool. Is that big? I don't know what they've been catching all day. I don't know what they've been catching. That's put in quotes, all day. Come to find out, Kevin was not catching much that day. And here's his younger sister who could care less. And she's reeling in these really long, skinny northern pike, which is what they were fishing for.
Yeah.
And I just remember being like, oh, is that a big deal? Oh, okay. And, my dad's like, let's get a picture. And he's all excited. And I'm
celebrating.
Excited. And he's proud of that. And so am I. And then come to find out, oh. I caught more fish than the others and bigger fish. And am I competitive? Sure am. Did that come from having 3 brothers? Yes, it did.
Darn right. That's what it happens,
Yes. But I just remember being, really laughable in that moment, but then it sticking with us.
There it is.
For the rest of the vacation and, 27 years later. So there's that too.
TikTok. I love it. Don't worry, Kevin. I'll have you on. Well,
yeah, that's right. He can tell his version of the story, which will involve all these other trips where he did catch fish. And that's great. That's great.
You do sound like your mom, because Donna would always say, I didn't care. Catching fish, great. Not catching fish, whatever.
Yeah. And yet she is quite the fisherwoman, let me tell you.
So I hear. Oh my gosh.
Those 2 go out all the time. I love that they do this. By the way, we knew they liked fishing, obviously, as we were growing up.
Right.
And then the kids leave the house, and then they both retire. He retired. My dad retired much earlier than my mom, but now they have summers to go fish, and they go fish. Anytime it's a good night for fishing, that's where you'll find them. It's fun to hear. They don't keep count. They keep count of their total in the end, and they don't keep count. For those of you watching the video, that's in quotes. But it is funny because they'll be like, Donna caught about half, and I caught, and my mom will be like, 2/3, or whatever. So it's fun.
Little side note.
Yeah, little nature there in my
could be wrong
personality as well. Yeah. But no,
just slides it in there. Yeah, that's great.
And when you do only have a couple months in the summer, in the winter you're not fishing much. My dad did go ice fishing every once in a while, but I think he learned very quickly that there's a lot of prep going into ice fishing. And then, as Janice alluded, 20 minutes in, nobody wants to be outside anymore. And when we were little, we didn't have a fish house. We didn't have heaters.
Oh my God, you're just out there in the elements. You were sitting on a bucket
on the ice in the elements. And I mean, I bet if we asked him, 20 minutes was probably a good run for an amount of time that Annie wanted to be out in the elements. And so it's funny thinking now, I'm like, oh my gosh, how frustrated would I have been as a parent to get all that ready, drill that hole. And we are not drilling with an automatic auger. He's like working to get a hole made, and then he's digging the ice out, and then he's getting me on my bucket, and he's getting my bait
and you're
ready.
Standing there going,
and he's refilling my 3rd cup of hot chocolate. That's the only reason I came, was for Dad's amazing hot chocolate that he made on the stove. And then he drills another hole for Kevin while Annie is fishing. And then he drills a hole for himself. And all of a sudden he hears his daughter say, can we go? Are we done? Could you imagine just So I think there's a reason we didn't really ice
Hot chocolate's
fish.
Gone, Dad.
Yeah, literally the
Time
moment
to
it was
go.
gone, we were done. We were cold. My fingers hurt. My toes hurt. I can't sit here. It's windy.
Toes.
All the things.
Yeah.
So
there's
he
a
might
good
have even
memory, though. There's one fond
great
memory, the hot
memory,
chocolate.
yes. Oh, that hot chocolate, I can like
Oh,
smell it. If you go to places in the winter that do cook their milk,
yeah.
right, instead of use water
Oh,
or use a microwave,
yeah.
there's this smell to like cooked milk. It kind of
Oh.
reminds me of grandma's house, your mom's house during oyster stew time,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That
New Year's
smell that
Eve.
comes from like boiling milk or almost boiling milk.
Yeah.
It has a similar smell, but obviously he's dumping in chocolate and you guys are dumping in oysters, which I have yet to try, by the way. I love
Never
oysters.
have.
I love oysters.
Yeah.
The idea of oyster stew, no thanks. I like it, but
All this time, poor Errol. He's like, Anna, you ready? We got some
are you
oysters too
pumped?
tonight.
I'm like, yeah, give that to someone else. Yeah. I know every time
Gonna
it's
share?
I was like, oh, I can smell
Annie.
Christmas. It has a scent. It's oyster stew. No thanks.
Oh, that's
No.
hilarious.
There you
I'm
go.
done. I'm full. Can't take another bite.
I'm gonna try it. But that'll be an episode later.
Okay.
Annie tries.
Let me mark that down somewhere.
Yeah, oyster stew and gives a review.
The oyster stew debacle.
But it has to be made in that kitchen, right? This can't be like gourmet oyster stew somewhere. This needs to be grandma's kitchen,
Errol.
oyster stew. Yeah. Yep.
Errol and Mary, you have a date with Ann.
That's
to
right.
convince
We'll
her.
get a
Oh,
organized event there. But anyways, yeah.
I'm gonna paste on your face while I wipe away my tears.
But so going back to the hot chocolate, that's how he would make it, is in the morning while he was making his coffee, he would boil milk and then he would add it with the chocolate and then he'd put it in a thermos and you were just like the whole way you were waiting for that hot chocolate. And then I bet we had most of it drank by the time those holes were cut for ice fishing. And then we were done. I got what I came for. Let's head on back. And mind you, we probably need to make a mention. We don't live super close to a lake. It's not like I grew up living on this lake. You had to travel to get to said lake. Yeah. In the winter, man, I bet that man had fun.
So this is a reoccurring theme here, the lake, because summer fun memories for me were at the lake.
Yes.
And I went to Woods Hole, which you maybe not even have ever been to, but that was our fun, was just running on that dock, just jumping in the water splash, finally getting cooled off because that heat was so hot.
Intense.
Yeah. So, but speaking of Woods Hole, that was another dimension of fear and scariness and not great memories of childhood, but there was that end goal and reward for cleaning this. Okay, listeners,
tell the story.
This is a hotel on a lake built in 1920 something. And my goodness, this thing looked like just a really big house. So it wasn't like it was this sprawling, acre covered piece of land. This was just a tall building in the 20s with maybe 8 rooms, 8 rooms. I don't know. But our job as kids, my mom maybe convinced 5 of us to go. So the younger
first
ones,
off,
sure, lake.
You did have to figure out how many were fitting in the vehicle to get to said location. But continue.
This was before even seatbelts. So just shove them in the corner, get them in that last child in the seat. You're fine. You're fine. Okay. Don't open the windows. You're fine.
Somebody hold on to Janice.
Yeah.
It's fine.
So get out of the car, beautiful view, Washington Lake, and we're up on this hill. That's where the hotel is, and then you'd go down the steps to the lake. But first, you got to clean this place. While our other cousins were drinking cocktails, Mai Tais, I don't know, mint juleps, whatever they did on the porch that we cleaned but prior to that. So here, let me clean that table off for you, sir. There's my age.
Looks a little dusty.
Enjoy. Yeah. But then they also had a trampoline. So heat of the day, my aunt, her husband, and her sister, Virginia, would sit on the porch, then heat of the days. Oh my God, it's too hot here. So now they would leave. We're like, bye-bye, and run down that hill and jump in the lake. But when we were done, we could come up, and they also had a trampoline dug into the ground. And oh my God, that is so much fun, except when you hit the spring. Then, ouch, that's brutal.
Then there's blood that you go wash off in the lake, and then you come right back.
Let's take you back down. Clean you off a little bit. It'll be fine.
That's why they made you guys clean. You just didn't remember all of the blood splatter. No kidding. That was caused by
what the heck is that on the ground? Clean that up. Good God. Gloria, get back here. Yeah. Your kids aren't done.
Now, was this your mom's siblings, or this was your dad's side?
Yeah, this was my dad, Bert, his sister, Margaret, and her husband, Buck. I think bought this place. I don't know when. I don't know. It was part of Buck's family. It was kind of a traumatic experience. No, it was fun. I don't know who owned it. We didn't, and it didn't come into the family.
But we worked there.
Yeah, for free. Yeah,
to the lake.
Never paid.
Other people could come to the public beach and utilize, but no. If you're going to come here, there's going to be some work
first. Yeah. Let's earn that.
I love that.
Oh,
this is a good segue into fall activities.
Oh, good.
My favorite fall activity is Thanksgiving. And I will match the idea that the Brosnan women, so Janice's maiden name, right? They know how to clean. So memories of everybody getting together and bringing all this food. And we always had like between 10 and 25 pies. And it's my favorite holiday. It beats Christmas for me.
Wow.
Because there's no agenda on Thanksgiving Day other than maybe the time we're going to eat.
Right.
Where for us as kids, Christmas, there was an agenda. First, we went to my dad's side of the family, and we went from this time to this time. And then we went to mom's side of the family, and we had to wait until we opened presents at this time. And it was very scheduled. Not that it wasn't, willy-nilly, but there were things that had to be done at certain times. Where Thanksgiving, everybody shows up. Once we think everybody is there, we devour food, and then there's no other agenda. Maybe there's football outside. Maybe there's football inside. Football. Maybe there's a movie playing downstairs with the kids. It was just fun. And however, to tie in Janice's "we must clean," it is amazing how the Brosnan women, and now I do it as an adult, are just constantly aware of the mess that is being made by having 25 people to 30 people in a house. And, and it's not like anybody's saying, "Oh, Janice, you need to clean." It's
no.
From 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, it's one of the sisters. And then maybe it transitions to another because that one's, grandkids just showed up or whatever. It's just, anyways, that's a very fond memory of my aunts, of just them stepping in and taking care of things versus one person doing it all or the host doing it all. We started hosting at our family. Must have been when I was like 12. Once we started hosting, this did not fall on my mom to clean up and make sure everything got put back. Right. All the sisters stepped in and helped do that. And
empathy and compassion. You learn a lot. At least in a large family. I'm sure in your family too, probably. That's what you learn, is you have to understand the situation. You have to have compassion for what's happening. And it's like, how can I help?
Yes. And then how can I help?
The chaos.
Man, do we use this opportunity to throw Uncle Dan under the bus? Is that what we do really quick here?
Oh, please. Thank
my
you.
favorite Thanksgiving memory.
Yes.
Uncle Dan. So Dan is married to Ann, the youngest of the 12.
Number 12, yep.
And he came to the family quite young as well, which I think will be alluded to in this story.
All right.
That he's just a young at heart who I don't know if he will ever grow up. Love you, Dan. You know where this is going. He could tell this story as well.
I will
So
interview
we like
him.
to play pranks on Uncle Dan. We like to do different things to kind of, get him I don't know, just kind of mess with them every once in a while.
Yeah.
And so there was snow this year of Thanksgiving. I was probably 15. I was older than should be in this scenario. 15, 16, maybe I was 17. I don't know. But we decided to go get snow from outside and like put it down Dan's shirt or something, mess with Dan with the snow outside.
Yeah.
And I did it more than once. And he's like, if you do that again, I'm throwing you in the sink. And the sink was full of dishwater because hello, we're constantly doing dishes all day, and it just refreshes the water, and then people come in and take their turns washing their dishes. By people, I mean the Brosnan sisters come in and do the dishes. Okay. So I say, you're not gonna throw a grown young lady into the sink. And he's like, watch me. So of course we decide to poke the bear. And he picked me up over his shoulder, and I was like, Dan, you won't. Dan, you won't. Now, granted, this is my house, which I'm sure he's thinking in his head. Like, I have clothes downstairs I can go change into. But he pushed me into the sink where I was fully seated with my legs dangling out and my upper body, and I was just soaked from the navel down to my knees.
Wow.
It's just like, I can't believe you did that. I can't believe
what is happening.
What is this?
Dad?
Yeah.
Anybody?
Oh, no. No one cared. They all laughed. They all said, you deserve this every second of this.
We need entertainment, so thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good old Dan.
So that would be my favorite fall.
That's very
memory.
cool. Do we think about spring?
I don't
rain.
know.
What about rain? Are you a thunderstorm fan?
It's been raining here for 6 days straight, which is very rare in Minnesota.
Wow. Yeah.
I will be, shocked at how many inches. I think we're supposed to get like 2.5 today. We've gotten multiple days of 3 inches this week. It's been really bad.
Wow.
Poor farmers. I mean, entire fields are underwater right now.
No.
It's going to be
brutal.
Rough.
Tough year. Yeah.
But in the spring, I don't know. I think with any Minnesotan, spring just comes when there's flowers and there's green grass and you're back outside, right?
Okay.
Have you ever been back for Easter?
Close, because it's close to my birthday. So some years I would, but not specifically. No.
Okay. So there was a big tradition. I think one thing to make sure I mention on this podcast about family and memories is just how many traditions we had growing up that I definitely think got passed down because of the Brosnan side. So my mom's side. There are so many good memories and childhood memories that spur from being with cousins consistently and for holidays. And so Easter was one. The Saturday before Easter, we always did an Easter egg hunt at the top of Sibley Park Hill. No, we did not climb the hill. We went the back way, which there are stairs. But all of the dads would leave and they would go hide all the eggs. We used to live right next to Sibley Park. We would walk all the way down and we would be, the moms would be pushing the strollers and we'd be walking the whole way, getting excited for the Easter egg hunt. And then obviously going and hunting for your eggs and finding your cousin's eggs and, being like, oh, I see one over here that starts with an N, Nick, or whatever.
Oh, so there were names on eggs or last names on eggs?
Names on eggs. Oh, that's a great question. I did meet people recently who was like, oh no, Ann, it's a race. And I was like, oh, it is not, because we'd be screaming if one kid got all the eggs.
Ugly crying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That would not have gone over well. We always had names on eggs. So each kid got the same amount of eggs. And then toward the end, you kind of helped the younger cousins find their eggs or things like that.
And we're doing that now with grandchildren too? I mean, your children?
Now we do that with grandchildren. A couple years ago, we kind of stopped getting all of the people together because now there's so many families and everybody has their own traditions and everybody has their own plans.
Right.
But we're really trying. We're trying to hold tight to it as much as we can.
Did we ever figure out how many kids now there are? How far this extended family goes?
Yeah.
I'm sure your mother has. I'll have to ask her.
I have written this all out multiple times,
Have you?
and I never remember the number, but I do know that. So Grandma passed away at age 100, and we were at 98 people who came down the line from Gloria and
From
Bert.
Gloria. Wow.
Crazy.
That's
Since then,
awesome.
we would be over 100 because there's been more grandchildren born in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Great-grandchildren. And I think one great-great-grandchild has been born in the last 2 years as well. So
Wonderful.
crazy.
So I
Wild.
interrupted you. So
That's
do you want to
okay.
go back to the Easter and your family, what your tradition was? No?
No, I mean, we can, but no, now we still do it. We still are doing an Easter
Oh,
egg hunt
yeah.
with our family. And, so my family and Scott's family and Ricky's family get together, and my parents and the boys go hide the eggs, and we still do the egg hunt.
So
And
great.
I
So
think if there
great.
was a year that this got missed, I would be very upset. There's some of those things that I'm like, no, there's no missing an Easter egg hunt. There's no missing.
Now you're a mom saying,
yes, and
that's how this is going to go.
This is how this is going to go, friends. There are no choices.
You are going to have fun.
That's funny. This last year, I missed Thanksgiving because I had COVID, and we quarantined the kids and my husband so that they could go to Thanksgiving because I was like, we can't miss a holiday. So that's funny. Yeah. Just the tradition, though, of being together. There's just so many memories of laughter and food and conversation. And now, since Grandma has passed, there's been almost like a year and a half to 2 years of people being like, we should get together. We should. And, when she was alive, we just made it a point to be together.
Yeah.
And now I think we've allowed that to kind of stretch a little bit. And we're all going, wait. I haven't even seen your children in 2 years.
Oh, gosh.
This is a problem. We want the cousins, kids to all know each other like we knew each other. And so, that's something that's really held true for me, of just that belief in family and that need to be with them and helping my kids know their cousins. Brian's family lives 3 hours away. We still try to make it down there, whether Brian comes or not. Brian's very busy with work. So sometimes I'm just taking my kids down there because, again, I want them to have relationships with their family down there and their cousins and have that same, what I grew up with. I just loved it so much.
Well, that is what you learn through life, is that family is the only thing that matters. Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, besides your health, please take care of yourself, and then family, because that's where the joy comes. The true heartfelt joy is when you're relating and having fun with people and know that it's good-hearted fun, and it's all about love. So, yeah.
And you can have that trust with them, and that builds who you are and the belief that you have in yourself and all of that, which I think is also really foundationally so important for people to have other people in their lives that they can be themselves around, feel safe around, trust that, this is a good space for them. And I think so many of us, we've got some wild characters. I cannot wait to listen to more of your episodes with family members. We got some wild characters. And I think it's because, they say that people who can exude who they are and be authentic to who they are.
Exactly.
Again, it's because they had a childhood of safety and loving and belonging. And I think that's why we have such an eclectic group in the Brosnan family tree.
Speaking of the most important things that we can take out of this life, the idea of respect, the idea of safety, the idea of dialogue, conversation. You have your own podcast, and I want you to talk about that a little bit while we're here. Please share.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a teacher by trade. I taught for 11, 12 years in the classroom, but then for years outside of the classroom as well. And what I recognized was that when people feel trusted, feel loved, feel like a place that they can be safe and belong, that's when their true potential can come out. And yet I wasn't always seeing that in school. And so I really switched how I taught, how I spoke, how I engaged with my students my last few years, and it completely changed the culture of my classrooms. Well, after leaving education, I now go out and work with companies to do that same thing. create systems where people can feel trusted, they can feel valued, and they can feel confident so that they can reach their true potential. And so I am a culture coach and a motivational speaker. I have a speech called Captain Your Culture, which is all about you taking action yourself to create a culture around yourself that you want to be in and that other people can thrive in.
Right.
While doing a lot of those speeches, people would say to me, "Oh, I want more of this. I want you in my back pocket." I get that a lot. I'm
That's
4'10".
so cool.
I'm a small little lady, and people are like, "I just want to put you in my pocket." And so, how can I be in your pocket? It's through a podcast. And so I started the What If It Works podcast. I am so close to episode 50. Maybe even by the time this airs, we will be at almost a year that I have been in business with this podcast, which is so exciting.
That's so
it airs every Wednesday morning. You can find it on any podcast platform. So Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to podcasts, you'll be able to find that there. And the mission of the episodes is just to help you take ownership over the culture around you, help you really reflect on who you are being. And so how are others relating to you and reacting to you in that way? There's a lot of
so helpful
strategies and techniques. Yep. And then just a lot of inspiration as well. I think when I was at my lowest moments, what got me out of that was listening to personal development and being reminded that I'm in control. And so there's episodes that are personal development connected as well, just to help people, feel unstuck, right? Like my goal is to help people momentum in their lives, whether that be with their relationships at home, relationships with their spouses, relationships with their coworkers, but build momentum so you can feel like you're going somewhere and that you can, truly achieve that potential that we know was placed inside you. So, yeah.
And that's why I think that podcasts like this, where you talk about family, you talk about growing up, you talk about the foundation that was built, right or wrong, good or bad, how you had to adapt. But then coming into the adulthood and going out into the workforce, you have to kind of rely on what you were taught being brought up, how you're supposed to help people, or how do you have to defend yourself. And either you were traumatized and had to dealt with a lot of emotional issues, and now you have someone triggering that. So family dynamics really make the foundation. And then now that you have places where you can talk about these things, I'm sure that your audience is like, oh yeah, this is what I need to work on. And probably in their own mind thinking, I know what triggers this now, kind of thing, where you're like, okay, it's not a wrong reaction. It's just your reaction because of your past and
because of those experiences.
Yes.
I had a dynamite college professor who did an activity with us that this is laughable today, that I just remember this so well. He had a giant thing of coffee filters. I don't know if any of you have seen this, but this is back in 2002. He had a giant stack of coffee filters, and he just, peels one coffee filter out. And he says, okay, and he picks somebody from the audience. It wasn't me, but he said, hey, tell me something about your childhood. And the person said something, and he set that coffee filter down, and he's like, tell me something else from your childhood. Tell me about your high school career. Tell me about, and he kept taking these coffee filters.
Yeah.
And then he had another individual, and he said, oh, tell me about your childhood. Oh, did you experience this that the last student said? No? Oh, new filter, right? And then by the end, he said, look at how we experience things, and it goes through these filters.
Interesting.
And it's going to come out very differently, even if all of us in this room are experiencing this moment together.
Right.
Some of you are filtering that your childhood has brought you to where you are, and it's a good thing.
So powerful.
And you're excited about that.
Yeah.
And others of you are listening to this, and you're stacking trauma, and you're stacking your negative experiences, and what comes out at the bottom, if we filtered it like coffee, is going to look and taste very differently than this over here. So that really helped me when I was thinking about working with kids, how many of them are coming with different experiences. So now as a culture coach, I'm working with managers and business owners who want to create a culture, but I'm reminding them that each of their employees, each of their teammates, each of their, students, as I work with educators, have these different filters. it doesn't mean we can't get to the end result. It just means we need to be thoughtful of how we get there. And when Janet seems stuck and you're like, I've been clear, I've told her what to do, I've told her why it matters, all this, and she still won't do it, like taking a second to reflect on maybe some of the filters that are happening or causing her to behave in a way, and then having a different conversation with that individual. But so, yeah, I think of that with foundation too. You and I grew up in the exact same town, yet we grew up very differently. Yet we grew up with, family as a foundation, but have very different values within that at the same time. And so how can we be thoughtful of that and be aware of it, but also not let that hold us back from helping people get to their true potential, even though one person might have 10,000 negative filters.
And I'd like to hear from our listeners. If you can think of a memory that in your family when you were a child or a teenager or something just before you went to the workforce, what was it that was the most powerful? Was it something positive and a pat on the back all the time? Or was it somebody that you had to just prove yourself time and time again? Or was it a very negative experience that just shut you down? So I'd just like to hear maybe something in the family that you think may have caused that, just to see what we can relate to, and if it's something else we can talk about in a future episode kind of thing. Love to hear that.
Yeah, I love that. Thinking about the structure, going back to the very first question you asked, I grew up with all brothers, and I think there's a lot of filters that occurred because of that. People will say, man, you're really outgoing and really loud. And I'm like, oh, yep, I had 3 people I had to compete with for that. Or, like, oh, you can really see things from multiple perspectives. And I'm like, that's because I grew up literally seeing the male perspective through a lot. Right. And so, yeah, I think there are some of those filters that have worked for us. And then there's some of them that have like held us back that we do need to continue to work through so that we can reach that potential that's inside all of us.
Well, absolutely. And being number 11 out of 12, talk about filters.
Yeah. Things were filtered before it even got to you.
Well, can't quite see through the filters of it all.
Right.
But, there's a lot of positive. There's not a lot of negative. I shouldn't say that. There's a lot of positive. And I, again, just going off of what my perspectives are. So I can't wait to hear other perspectives. And I really hope they will join me on this to, just like I said before, refresh me or clarify something, or please share your experience so that it helps me understand the whole dynamic too.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Ann, thank you so much for joining me today. This was a ton of fun. And please, listeners, let us know what you could relate to, what you really couldn't relate to, or what you would like us to talk about. And if Ann will join me again, hopefully in the future, we do have several other things we can talk about.
I mean, post oyster stew. It'll be a January episode. Join us back here in January of 2025.
Bringing that all the way around. I love it. And here we are. Back to the oyster stew. Oh, I love you. All right, Anna. You have a great day. Audience, please have a great day. And think about your childhood. I hope it was filled with wondrous things, but I've also hoped that you're taking care of yourself and reassuring yourself that tomorrow is another day. See us next time for Family Dynamic Conversations. Thank you, Ann.
Absolutely.